Doc Chaves, thanks so much for joining us today. Can you share a little bit about your background for our listeners, not only about what it is that you do, but how you came to be involved in space?
Sure. So let's start with that. One of my earliest, most profound memories is sitting at my aunt's house in Kansas City watching Neil Armstrong step onto the moon. And so, I was a kid of the 60s when the NASA reps came to every classroom and told us all about going to space and what it would take to be an astronaut or work on the missions. And of course, by the time I got into high school, all that was starting to go by the wayside, but that early passion for space has always been there. On the wall behind me is a stamp from Fireball XL5, which is an ancient TV show and super marionette puppets doing space travel. So you can Google that one and get a laugh from the past. But so growing up then in high school, sort of still an interest in science, but really graduated towards theater, did a degree in lighting design, and then a degree in broadcast journalism. And most of my life, I've described myself as a translator. I translate English to English. I've worked in the insurance industry and for the last 23 years in the technology industry, translating highly complex things down for mere mortals to understand. I work for a company called Liquor Biosciences. We are a leading provider of technology worldwide for measuring global climate change and agricultural and plant physiology research, and on the cutting edge of biotechnology research with protein imaging. Liquor 20, 30 some years ago introduced one of the first automated DNA sequencers. So when the whole race to decode the human genome was on, Liquor was one of 2 instruments being used for that purpose. Today, our technology has progressed to the point where, in addition to laboratory research, a lot for COVID, by the way, a lot of our instrumentation was used to validate protocols and tests on COVID vaccines. But we're also doing a lot with cutting edge cancer research. We have a near infrared dye that will light up tumors so that surgeons can remove them more readily. Or in some cases, I'll throw a big word at you here, photodynamic therapy, which is a fancy way of saying we can kill cancer with light. And so we have about 30 clinical trials going on around the world where Liquor dyes made here in Lincoln, Nebraska, I should say that's where I'm coming to you from, are used in those trials. One of our gas analyzers is actually presently up on the International Space Station. So it's with great pride that we say our technology is in use on all 7 continents and the International Space Station. And with that, I'll take a breath.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I think the only time that I actually got to know anything at all about Liquor, Kevin, you were talking about it with students and about how they were able in natural disasters to use that technology to determine, where maybe piece of the. Am I wrong?
That's LIDAR.
Oh gosh, let's edit that out. See, I told you I was the guy or the girl who's going to be the layman's.
No, she's referring to
LIDAR.
After
LIDAR.
the Haitian earthquake. I was working at the National Science Foundation. And they did a rapid funding mechanism to some companies, and one was doing LIDAR for detailed mapping of the infrastructure damage.
Right.
So
you didn't bring it down enough to my level, English to English enough.
So let me do it this way. What I like to tell people at the root of what Liquor is all about for 50 years is we help scientists answer difficult questions. And we do it very often with technology that's novel and disruptive, not the normal way of doing things. But again, we provide clearer answers, more thorough answers, and more detailed answers to questions about what's going on with the climate, what's going on with air quality, and what's going on at the molecular level in our bodies.
Sure. I see you guys as sort of the Venn diagram intersection of chemistry, physics, technology. They're really technological solutions at the interface of agriculture, chemistry, and physics, which I'm a biochemist. So I love the fact that, I've been making notes already about some of the things you were saying.
I know, but before we go there, I have to ask this question. You said theater and lighting background, and then all of a sudden we jumped into the
near infrared.
I feel like I've missed something somewhere, and I'm thinking theater, that was my area, and then all of a sudden you're in space. So how did you end up taking that focus from there?
So my first passion was theater, both acting and lighting design, and I ended up studying lighting design, getting a BFA in lighting design, and decided that at that point, after 8 years of doing nothing but theater, I was kind of done. I wanted to go to what's next. And so I thought, yeah, I better learn how to write better. And so I went to the University of Missouri School of Journalism, which is certainly a great place to learn how to write. And so with that, I was a reporter covering state government, and I got tired of putting microphones in front of senators' faces who didn't really want it there, decided to get on the other side. So I went to work actually in retail, writing and producing television commercials. So over my career, the theater and the journalism have kind of combined. I've probably written and produced 400 or 500 corporate videos and television commercials during my career. So
Right.
that led me to being a communicator at an insurance company. And then after 15 years there, I wanted to try something different and get into technology. So like I said, I came to Lycor as their token right brain person, creative person, to bring that component to for marketing and communication to the technology company.
Now,
really
were you a Nebraskan when you were hired by Lycor, or did the job entail that you moved to Nebraska?
I actually grew up here in Lincoln, went to public school here, university for a little bit, then went away to Missouri and Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri for my theater degree and my journalism degree, and came back to work for 5 years in retail. And that was really a great experience because you'd write an ad and air it, and the next day you knew whether it worked. You know, customers came in and bought the thing or not. So it was a great, again, writing master class, if you will, for me. So, yeah.
Right. I mean, I've told many students, you want to be an engineer, but you need to be a good communicator. If you could work at a used car lot and sell cars for a month, you would really have to hone your communication skills. But I think you would agree that your life is really about persuasion, right? The things that you build are persuasive articles or persuasive devices to illuminate, educate, but really you're persuading someone, right?
Correct. Many times I am fortunate to talk to the University of Missouri or University of Nebraska College of Engineering, switch states there, sorry. But I'll ask a class of engineers, there'll be 30 or 40 in the room, and I'll say, raise your hand if you want to be a professional communicator. Crickets, you know, nothing.
No.
And then one year I had I think it was a woman raised her hand, and it was perfect. I've been waiting all this time. I said, everybody look at her. That's who you're going to work for, because you're either wired to, in the case of an engineer or any profession, you're wired just to keep your focus on what you want to do. That's great. But if you can sell your ideas, if you can persuade, if you can convince others to follow your lead, you're going to be in a leadership, a management position, and you're going to do more if that's what you want to do.
Well, you have to bring it down to, as you were saying earlier, to, you know, someone else's level. I mean, oftentimes the content, you know, and again, you know, that's my role in this, is I help the kids prepare to speak, or even in the case now, since COVID, we've been writing these technical papers. Well, there are times that they may have the content knowledge, but what they're trying to say isn't clearly coming across. So being able to convey really, you know, elaborate content is super important.
You know, sometimes the oldest sayings still are the best, and that is, you know, you ask somebody what time it is and they give you the history of watchmaking. You just want to know what time it is, right? Yeah. And I love engineers and scientists because of their passion and because of their focus and what they've understood and what they've had to get to understand. And you've got to give them props for that. But ultimately, the person wants yes or no. What'd you find out? You know, not how, but what do you know, and convince me that it's real.
Yeah.
Right. So many places we could jump off, but let's go with this. I know you from John McClure.
Yes.
John McClure is the reason that you and I met, and I didn't even meet John the first time we were in the same room. It was two of my students that met John, just cold called him. I took two kids to a fancy swanky millionaire's home on a lake in Michigan at the Michigan Space Forum. And I said, go network, bring me back some business cards and contacts. And then the next thing you know, down the road, I meet this guy named John, and we talk, and you and he were friends. And John said, hey, my daughter teaches first grade. And I said, hey, my chemistry kids in 7th grade can teach her first graders some. And that's how all of this got started. Right. John was one of our interviews we did this past summer. I don't know if you knew that, but we interviewed him. Wonderful. And for our listeners, John, he's recently passed. And I just want to take a minute and do a shout out just because of how awesome he was. I thoroughly enjoyed the time I had with John. He was, I think he had a vision for what he wanted Nebraska kids to do. Could you share a little bit about your relationship with him and how we got to the fact that you and I are on the screen together?
I'm honored to be able to do that. John actually touched base with LICOR when he came to town to see if his satellite expertise. John's a man who brought us OnStar, as your viewers may remember. Very knowledgeable guy, very P.T. Barnum, I called him. I mean, he knew how to persuade and to develop ideas. And so when LICOR, we didn't really have anything that needed satellite technology, but he and I shared a love for Mexican food. And so we're off to eat lunch, and he's sitting there and he says, Doc, you know, the first people to walk on Mars are walking through the halls of junior high today. And that was like, bang, you know, oh yeah. And of course, because I had a love of space, because we both were close in age and grew up in the NASA heydays, golden years, if you will, I was hooked. And so he introduced me to the concept of of the CubeSat program and the program that you have in Florida and the success. And he always started with the fact that he was at this meeting and these two young people came up and shook his hand and looked him in the eye and talked to him like any other entrepreneur of wiser years would do. And he was taken just like I was when he told me the comment about Mars. And so John's vision was multifold. He wanted a CubeSat in Nebraska. He wanted the first CubeSat from Nebraska, because NASA has a desire to have one from all 50 states, and he desperately wanted his grandchildren to participate in the program. You know, I'm a grandfather too, and I totally get that he wanted to pass along that passion. And at one point, his kids and my grandchildren, we were in the middle of a field launching an Estes rocket and, you know, doing all those things. And so he started the Big Red Satellite team, which submitted its proposal to NASA well, earlier this year, actually, or late last year. Yes, and John's dream came true. The NASA accepted the program. I was on the board as his PR marketing advisor. And just a couple weeks before he passed away, I made a commitment to him to carry the torch for him. So I'm sort of the pro tem supervisor or whatever of the Big Red team. But Nebraska's program is unique in many ways, as each CubeSat program is. But we have a group of middle and high school kids who are then teamed with mentors, undergraduate students at the University of Nebraska, College of Engineering, College of Journalism and Mass Communications, and then under the supervision of some instructors at the College of Engineering. So they're busy building their plan. I'm busy with a group of adults raising the money for the program. But John lived to see his dream on the road to reality. And we had a very successful launch of hot air balloon earlier in April to do some initial testing. Got some great press coverage from that. Congressman Don Bacon from Nebraska came and spoke. Astronaut Nebraska's own Clayton Anderson, astronaut, came and encouraged the students in their quest. And so we're off and on the race to space once again.
Oh, we're so proud of you guys for that. We really are.
You know, we interviewed Joel too, along with one of the middle school students.
We did.
Her name.
I don't remember the high school student.
No, he was Joel. He was Joel, but
Joel was the university student. Joel and Joel and John. You know, they were critical undergrads involved with the AXP program, the engineering club, if you will, at Lincoln, and we love those guys. You know, you guys did it's a great story, right? My kids have written 13 proposals to NASA. We got selected twice. You guys basically went one for one. That's about as good as it gets.
I will say though, we must give credit. Look in the mirror, Kevin, because John was always holding you up as the gold platinum standard. This is how it was done. This is what he did. We've got to follow Kevin's lead. And so we owe credit to you for that as well.
Well, that's really nice. And I'm not going to edit that part out of this interview.
But we're leaving my LiDAR.
But what I will say is it's awesome to create something from scratch. You know, us old people, we know how wonderful it is to build a baby, you know, build something that's you got to fashion. And I know John was passionate about this. I followed you. I watched the balloon coverage, the article. I saw your new webpage, a good looking webpage. And I do believe the balloons are a good way to help kids get, you send something far away, you try to communicate with it. We use radios that are very similar to space radio. So wonderful. Do you anticipate that and I know Lycor is a big supporter of this program. Do you know, or do you have an idea of when your BigRedSat is scheduled to launch, or when you hope to have it ready?
I believe the testing of the solar cells that's key to their proposal is next spring, and I think they're shooting for being ready for payload the fall of 22 or winter of 23. Like any scientific project, that's subject to the whims of Murphy's Law and any number of things.
Space is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And almost no mission goes on time. What I will tell you, and I told the kids this in Nebraska, I said, the NASA guys or some space guys told me this, and it's so true. You never launch a spacecraft until the weight of paperwork exceeds the weight of your vehicle. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I thought about, holy cow, what about the Saturn V? That sucker was 7+ million pounds fully loaded at liftoff.
But the bureaucracy was probably heavier.
But yes, I think there's so many soft skills that are involved with this type of project. The liaising with not only NASA, but your integrator, your launch provider. You have to work with the FCC if you're going to remote sense. You have to work with the FCC to get your radio license. You have to work with the Department of Commerce if you're going to take images of the Earth. It is a glorious and wonderful introduction to, you got 10 people that are now your bosses telling you what to do, and you need to make them all happy.
Yeah, and something to share for other people who are at different points on the path. Working for 20 years at a research company, I knew going in, but I've come to appreciate more. You can pursue an idea for years and have that eureka yay moment, and you could pursue something for years and go, okay, we learned this, but that's it, and now we got to go on. But everything builds. I like to think of when I talk to people about science and research, all the papers that are published, think of them as Lego blocks. And Legos go together in infinite combinations. And so a researcher in Alaska discovers this particular technique. He or she publishes, and then somebody in Maine goes, hey, I'm going to apply that to this, and puts that Lego block on theirs. So even a CubeSat team may get to a point, say their CubeSat doesn't launch, but the things that they've learned, the skills that they've developed, the business, the sales, the promotion, all of those tools, they're going to pay off in some other way. There are different Lego blocks for them that are going to go together. So, yeah.
It's like the relationship building process.
Absolutely.
I mean, here you have these, outside organizations, and you have these university kids who are working with the younger kids. That kind of gives them that idea that, hey, I could actually do this. Like they already have real world experience.
I still think the CubeSat is less about technology. It's human capital development.
Yes.
You are building your STEM infrastructure for the future, your STEM workforce. And that's, I think, the sweet spot.
Well, one of the things I take great pride in doing is when I'm talking to a foundation or somebody about BigRedSat, I get to the point where I say, you need to know that my boss is a 10th grader and she's pretty sharp, but this is why I'm doing this. The president of our team is a young woman, started in 9th grade, and is leading.
What's her name again? Because we interviewed her with Joel, and I can't remember her name.
Elsa.
That's it. That's it. Yes, we met. I had the opportunity of meeting her over the summer.
She only beat you to the podcast by 6 months.
She well deserved. Well deserved. You're doing it in the right order. You're doing it in the right. Start at the top and work your way down. I think
that's the model that we've been trying to kind of create and see, and really just when we see other people kind of doing what we're doing too, it's just a reminder of, oh yeah, there is a reason behind this goal. It's something that works, and it's going to make a difference in her life well beyond.
Yes. Gosh, we should probably just go ahead and say right now, in about 6 months or so, we need to have you back so we can do an update on
Love to. Yep.
And obviously we need to celebrate. I hope you launch from Florida and not California, because that's 2 hours from us, and
Great.
we can literally
We can all
go
come up.
outside at night and see
Yeah.
the rockets going up
Yeah.
even from here.
And get the
Oh, wow.
teams together. I mean, I know
Yes.
that when you did your preliminary design review, I think it was Joel and Elsa, maybe a few of the people from Nebraska chimed in, right?
Yeah, it was in the middle of COVID, and you guys did a virtual presentation at our event at KSC.
Right.
But man, it's such an exciting time for you guys. So
Yes,
it
it is.
I guess my question to you is, I need to talk to you offline about Lycor and all of your tech, but what has been the response of your community with your BigRedSat? And I know you were involved with a museum at one time. Is that still
Sure.
the case? Could you share a little bit about that?
You bet. So Lincoln, Nebraska and Omaha, Nebraska are separated by about 50 miles and the Platte River. And about halfway, not quite, but about halfway on the Platte River is the Strategic Air and Space Museum, Strategic Air Command Space Museum. They've got a U-2, they've got some phenomenal aircraft that are there on display. And they were gracious to host our launch back in April. They have a permanent display with the CubeSat story being told. We 3D printed a CubeSat for them and put some fake solar cells on it. And so they continue to be helpful in that regard. And so we hope in the future they were the ones that brought us Clay Anderson for the launch. And so we're hopeful that, as we move forward, the story of the BigRedSat will continue to be told at that museum. And we try and promote them as best we can, because it's a great destination. When you're going down Interstate 80, it's about 2 minutes off Interstate 80 at the Platte River. So there's a little plug from my Chamber of Commerce hat's on right now. But it's really a fantastic museum. So yeah, they've been very helpful. I mentioned the launch, and you mentioned you saw the story. We were very fortunate. It was very odd, but I have a good friend who's a future conversation for you. I'll tell you about him offline. But he lives in California, and he's been tracking BigRedSat for us. The CBS affiliate in Los Angeles picked up our story the next day and ran the BigRedSat team story on the LA News.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All press is good press.
You bet.
It's more evidence of the idea of networking. One person, you never know that Lego piece, how it's going to fit.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I still think, and I hope somebody hears this, I think we need to get PBS involved. This is a great PBS story, I think. So I want to remind folks, or will you please share the website where people might see, because I know there's a donate button on your website. So I know I brought this up. I know.
Thank you.
Could you please share your website for the BigRedSat?
We are BigRedSat, all one word, BigRedSat.org. ORG. So please, check us out and help us out if you can. We're building a new generation of people who love space and understand. And an important thing for students right now that I've learned being at Lycor, your passion, your focus may be, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a physician. I'm going to be whatever. And as you take your college education and maybe your graduate education, life happens and you go, So Lycor is a great example. We have world subject matter experts. We have people with a bachelor's degree in molecular biology who are nowhere near the lab on any given day. They're out teaching about our products, selling our products, writing manuals for our products. There's all kinds of opportunities when you have that basic understanding and passion. You have to have both. Pick a job you like and you'll never work a day in your life. So, if you get to a point, we see people who have their eyes on medical school and they start and they go, no, this isn't me. But now they have this vast knowledge about anatomy and science, and they suddenly pivot and are doing something totally different and are really happy. So life's going to take you on a path that's maybe not totally predictable, but if you have those fundamental skills of the science and the arts, got to put a plug in for that, and communication, you're going to be able to excel in whatever direction you go.
It's really good. Well said. I think about it. I've always wanted to go to space, be in space, do space. Now I've got, if you get 12-year-olds doing that, I feel like I still get a win out of that,
Right.
even better.
Yeah.
There's something really satisfying about figuring out a way to get get that soul, the part of your soul that wants to really do something, finding a way to be in that world. So I know some of the tech. I've seen your website, Lycor's technology, and that makes a big difference in terms of feeding the world, right?
Yep.
There's a
Yep.
lot of what you've done, your company has done, that is important in how we feed one another.
So anybody who's, well, I learned in journalism school not to make an assumption, but most people grounded in some basic science have heard the concept of photosynthesis, or how plants turn light into energy, food. Photosynthesis is the key measurement of so many things in plant research. And Lycor is a premier provider. Our LI 6800 is a field photosynthesis instrument, and its predecessor, the 6400, quoted in tens of thousands of scientific publications, helping scientists get those answers. So yeah, gas exchange, CO2, methane, and now even nitrous oxide, those are kind of our sweet spots for Lycor technology to make measurements and help scientists understand.
Absolutely.
And-
And like you said about the Legos, right? The more,
Connect 'em.
when you are quoted by numerous folks, you know that whatever you had done has some merit and value.
Well, I'm
Yes,
just thinking
exactly.
too, and I know we're getting to the end of this interview, but obviously you've got to reach out to Doc a little more with your kids to be able to come up with some new ideas. We're always looking for new conference paper proposals and research ideas, and it sounds like just having them look into your company alone, into Life, where there's going to be a lot of opportunities.
Yes, the 3 proposals we submitted this year, 2 are biological, which lends itself real well.
Right.
1 is actually with rhizobacteria, and
Okay.
that I'm really, I just look forward to having a conversation. So,
Yeah, definitely.
and so that brings us to our
Well,
last
we close
question.
out all the time. Honestly, I know that you'll be back and that you're going to work with Kevin a little more, but for our listeners who might be thinking, hey, whether I want to start a CubeSat team, or whether, I'm going off to college and I'm not really sure where I'm going to specialize in, what advice do you have for our younger listeners out there, to kind of to recognize that maybe what they set their path on, it diverges? What advice?
So the first thing that comes to mind is the word passion. Find out what you're passionate about. What do you really care about, and focus on that, because if you're doing that, you're gonna have fun. There's any number of ways to make money to pay the rent and buy food and pay for your car. But if you're not doing something that you enjoy and that you're excited about, and then likewise, when it comes time to look for some place to work, do your homework on the company. Find out what their culture is like. We talk about work-life balance, which to a junior high or high school student, that's not. But in time, it will be an important thing. But figure out who you are, know how you're wired, and see where that fit comes in, and ask questions. And we make an offer at Lycor. I'll make an offer on this program. If you want to ask a question, contact me at Lycor. I'm the only person there named after one of the 7 dwarfs, and we'll talk to you. You want us to look at your resume, we'll look at it for you. It's one thing when you go to a company and you say, hey, I want a job. Okay, and they've got to go through a whole process, and there's legal stuff. Somebody calls me and says, hey, Doc, I'm just trying to learn more about X, and can you point me in a direction? I always talk to those people. And sometimes we've hired them, and sometimes I've said, boy, with what you're interested in, you need to go see so-and-so. So few students take the time to do that it's an easy offer to make.
Sure.
Yeah.
I so appreciate that. We're going to add yours to that list of people that share with us. You're only as strong as your network.
Right.
And building the biggest, most robust, high-tech, smarter than you network is the way to go.
And I'm just thinking too, like, it sounds like, from having such a diverse background yourself, that recognizing that people of diverse interests can find a place or a space within
Right.
an area. And it sounds like what you do at Lycor. So I might be having a few people contact you that are outside space and science, but but maybe from a social media marketing / like political science aspect, just to see where they can fit in.
Exactly. BigRedSat's a good example. MJ Schuster, she is one of the mentors. She's at the College of Journalism, but she loves space, right? So she's showing them how to communicate, how to do good PowerPoint slides, how, those types of things make a huge difference.
Well, I'm just going to throw it out. We have some young kids that are excited. They just published their first book. I would like to offer our kids.
It's a children's picture book. It's not like
to work with your kids and maybe writing a children's book about the Big Red Sat.
That sounds fantastic.
And because our kids love doing stuff like that. 12-year-old writing books for 5-year-olds is a sweet spot. So
exactly. Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon, and we look forward to working with you more in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.